Hey there, freaks and sickos. Welcome to my campaign. I got the news from a fellow furry on Telegram, and it happened uh, about a whole day after this article was published and posted. So, I am gonna do the posting of videos by order of urgency. I'm even gonna use my next video to tease this one because I'm a YouTuber, and apparently that's how you're supposed to do it. I made the news. It's just the source is exactly the kind of source I would expect it to be. This right here is the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail is a conservative newspaper in the United Kingdom. And in the UK, being a conservative is the same as our Democrats, is how they put it, or that was how they put it all the way up until the Harris Walls ticket started coming around. And now, not only does Minnesota have its golden child running for vice president again, the woman who chose her was Kamala Harris. Awesome. This is like the year of Minnesota, and I'm all here for it. This state just simply has not gotten as much attention as it does now. Here, let me show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so we have the Daily Mail article, but up here in my research workspace, uh, Minnesota State Fair breaks opening day attendance record, which is great. This usually happens. It's kind of accounted for. And if you're a furry convention and you're looking at ways to scale up for a large number of attendees, this is how you do it. This is the example. Because the state fair is actively preparing for infinite scaling at a certain rate, and this is well within their estimates. I would, if you live here, avoid the state fair on weekends if you can. Uh, I certainly can. I can go in the afternoon for dinner and then come home. Not just once, but several times. As much as I can afford, which will only be a few times this year. And this is the first state fair in which a lot of influencers started to show up. The Minnesota State Fair is the most widely attended state fair of its kind. It's it goes throughout the week, and because of that, there's less scarcity. So when they say, this is the biggest state fair in the country, what they mean is this is the biggest deal for an event that takes place over a couple of weeks. It's already started, by the way. I was watching Almanac before this. And that episode is taking place at the state fair. Everyone in Minnesota loves getting together at the state fair. That is, if you are a real Minnesotan, like Governor Tim Walz. Speaking of, I I really like the guy. I really do. And here's an article that's quoting me saying that, among other things. Let me just read this and give my impression of what the Daily Mail has to say. And keep in mind, these are British people. These are British conservatives, so they're going to be extremely transphobic. So content warning on that. By Joe Hutchinson, published at 10:43 p.m. on August 22nd, 2024. And they made one update a bit later that night. Contest for council seat is rot after Furry, called Metro Mutt, announces that he's standing as candidate. And this is a very clickbaity headline that is designed to draw in viewers from shock. Council could mean British, as in local councils there as well. And I'm sure there are plenty of people who click the headline, only to be met with this. A Minnesota council seat election has been rocked after a furry announced that he would be standing as a candidate. I suppose standing is the British word for running that we use in English for politics. Why standing? No, I'm running. I'm in this to win it. Like, my campaign may be goofy and eccentric, but it has serious solutions to serious problems, and also is doing everything it can to respect the freedom of every American. Macbeth, who identifies as a furry named Metro Mutt, is running his campaign through an account on the left-wing social media site BlueSky. Is how that site is turning out, because it's sort of like Mastodon, in which you can pick your own moderation, but it is way more user-friendly. It is the drop-in Twitter replacement, and there's nothing Elon Musk can do about it because he signed away his right to sue Jack Dorsey and BlueSky for the existence of BlueSky and anything it does. Elon Musk is not a smart businessman, which is why he is doing everything he can to beg Republicans to bail his ass out. And I am going to stop him. Real Americans are going to stop him. In one post to BlueSky, Macbeth has labeled himself as the most qualified candidate for Maple Grove City Council. That's actually in my bio. That's in my bio. And you can see for yourself by going to votemacbeth.org and finding out for yourself. And I really want the Secretary of State to put that as my official campaign website. I own it. It is for the campaign, even though it's a redirect to BlueSky, it still counts. His post continues. The Minneapolis suburb, that is Maple Grove, could have a furry on its city council because our local politics have done too little for too long, just like Maple Grove Transit. And that is the very reason I am running for office. I do not like Maple Grove Transit. I would rather bring Metro Transit to Maple Grove. I would rather have one Metro, have one transit, instead of this splinter nonsense. Why does Maple Grove need its own transit when it's in the Metro? Why does Plymouth need Metro Link? You're not linked to the Metro. You are in the Metro. So ditch that for Metro Transit, and the same for MVTA. Why do you need your own special, intentionally awful transit system? And that's how Maple Grove Transit came to be. I think what happened was around the year 1990, so slightly before I was born, Maple Grove just decided, hey, you know what? Let's have our bus to Minneapolis and back. It'll be the envy of everything, but we're going to stunt this going forward. We're going to make sure this is awful, that you can only go from Maple Grove to Minneapolis and back, and only during rush hour on weekdays. A terrible system. And dial-a-ride will only work within a certain number of hours. Because reasons. Because racism. Because racism is the reason for that. No, I am going to just break that all down and have Metro Transit completely take over our system. And that includes the livery, and they can take some of our buses too. Like the slightly cushier buses, they can use that for whatever they damn well please. If they say we should keep them, we could keep them. If they want to change it out for different buses, they could do that. If they want to put us on a bus rapid transit system that goes through all the northwest suburbs, they can do that. If they want to put Maple Grove as a stop on the Blue Line, so be it. I'm tired of stale Steffi standing in the way of that. The mayor. So yeah, if I and Samba Fall are the top two vote getters, that's going to shake things up to where things will get moving again, where Maple Grove will begin to see real improvements that the young and working can finally see and feel and be proud of. But Stale Steffi and his two goons on city council, one of which is running for re-election, is what's standing in the way of that. And I want to tear that down and have something better. Me and Samba Fall take their place. And I like how they pulled photos from my media page. Clark Macbeth, 31. I'm pretty sure I'm the youngest. I'm not for certain, though. Is running to be a member of Maple Grove City Council in the upcoming election with candidates currently in the race. And I'm in the race, too. My name is on the ballot. I filed, and I would like votemacbeth.org to be on the Secretary of State website, please. Macbeth, who identifies as a furry named Metro Mutt, real costume, real persona, is running his campaign through an account on the social media site BlueSky. Macbeth wants to protect abortion rights. I mentioned that in several of my shorts. I want to be the candidate for sexual freedom. And has seemingly thrown his weight behind Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in their run for the White House. Yes, very much so. Furries represent fans of media featuring anthropomorphic animals and may include artists, writers, gamers, and role players. If you're in the UK, if you're British, you should know what a furry is. You have like the highest furry to normie ratio. The furry fandom began as its own thing in the 1980s. It was a subsection of sci-fi in the 70s. It didn't come into its own until the 80s. That's the real history of it. And has, since the 2020s, exploded in popularity. I think the late 2010s, early 2020s is when that really took off. It struck a chord with Gen Z and Gen Alpha. I don't know how much for each. Even more so than millennials, and even more so than the Gen Xers that were the first to formalize that. In a separate post earlier this year, he also commented on the furry subculture saying the great thing about furry porn is that it is both furry and porn, which is true. A furry is anyone who is interested in anthropomorphic animal characters. Some furries wear elaborate costumes named fursuits or animal ears or tails. If you're British, you should know this already. Why is the Daily Mail insulting their readers' already low intelligence? Do better. Macbeth wants to protect abortion rights and has seemingly thrown his weight behind Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in their run for the White House. According to his Wikifolk page, he, quote, wholeheartedly backs Walz and celebrates Minnesota's advancements in LGBTQ plus rights, cultural diversity, and spiritual freedom. Oh yeah. We've been building that for quite some time. And we've had to go against the grain, against the rest of America's grain, several times to do that. Especially in 1984. After Walz was selected as Harris's vice president pick, he posted, quote, "Congratulations, Governor Walz. You earned it. Proud of you. Quote, Daddy, unquote, unquote." In another recent post, he said, quote, "Everyone who is not a Republican deserves to be very happy for the rest of their lives," unquote. And that will only be true if Harris and Walz win. And you know that, okay? Vote.gov. mnvotes.gov if you're in Minnesota. Everyone else in America, vote.gov. Those are your instructions. Follow them. Do all the steps you need. No excuses. According to Macbeth, he will be participating in a debate on October 8th, which, according to the filing packet, I will be. I hope that is still true. I will ask them. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous that it is going to happen after early voting begins. So I need to push out a bunch of YouTube videos until then to introduce you all to the real me. Because the real me isn't seen in public very much. And I am autistic, okay? And using substances to mask is not a permanent solution to that. Very temporary. I can't do that forever. I don't want to do that forever. And, well, the real me is going to show up at the debate as well. I promise you that. His Wikifolk page says that Macbeth, quote, formally declared allegiance to the furry community, unquote, at the age of 15 after discovering the subculture online. As a lifelong computer scientist, it took a lot of searches that involved Sonic the Hedgehog, because I had a friend in Warren, Pennsylvania, where I went to high school. He was into Sonic at the time, and we're not really friends anymore. It was a very odd kind of relationship. He has since become a, quote, regular presence at regional gatherings, unquote, according to his page. Kind of, I go in and out of regional and personal, the formal and informal. A lot of furries do that, and there's no shame in doing that. Like, I do stuff with MN Furs, I do stuff not with MN Furs. And that's pretty typical of how furries are in Minnesota. And MN Furs, to their credit, have been trying to accommodate everyone in their schedules and the whole, oh yeah, some of you work retail, we're actually going to account for this now. Great. And they're the only furry group, formal, regional furry group, that runs its own furry conventions. Usually that is offloaded to something or someone else. Like you have this group of very influential furries that say there's a convention, it should be in this area. That's not how furry migration works. If you're going to staff furry migration, you are going to be in Minnesota or near it, and that's just how it is. And Minnesota's nonprofit laws allow them to do that, and it took them a lot of effort to get that. And I understand that there is a risk of that being stripped away because of recent scandals. So don't do scandals, MN Furs! The furry fandom, which comprises of people who express an interest in animals with human qualities, began in the 1980s, according to the International Anthropomorphic Research Project, a Canadian thing, and like the least trustworthy thing to me from Canada. But I'm obviously biased with that assessment. Furries tend to be relatively young, with a majority of adult furries, parentheses, over the age of 18, close parentheses. Yeah, in America, we two-track. In Europe, furry's more of an adult thing for adults, but in America, we two-track. We get kids in their sandbox environment where they're not exposed to adult stuff, whereas the adults have access to their events. And in M and Furs, that sandbox is there's a hard barrier between it. Like, we don't really want the kid furs for events and the adult fur events to mix. They both have exclusive events. Like, there's youth only events, there's adult only events, and then there's the yellow everyone can get together type of events like the picnics and stuff like that. But, you know, if you have a teenager, they're hearing inappropriate stuff anyway and laughing really loud at it. So these yellow, not green, not red, teen, like in general, furry is rated T for teen, but there's also red and green. If you catch my vibe, my feel here. Being in their early to mid-20s and nearly 75% of furries being under the age of 25, yes, Gen Z and Alpha are very into us, even more so than I, a millennial, was drawn into it. And I was only drawn to it even more once I realized just how much furries know about IT and are involved with... There's a reason the Daily Mail just can't do hard punches against furries, and that's because without us, there's no internet. This site could redirect to E621 if they make us too mad. And all conservative media seems to understand this, from the Daily Mail to Fox News and Newsmax. Slander and smear furries as something even worse than what they really are, and you are going to pay a very expensive internet bill, just like that that TERF who hacked into Furfinity the other day. Across samples, the majority of furries have been found to self-identify as white, with approximately 15 to 20% of furries identify as a member of an ethnic minority. I wonder why this would appeal to Native Americans. Gee golly willikers, I wonder why. I'm in Minnesota, so that's a thing specific. Well, not specific to us. It's every American's problem, but we we did something here that we don't like to talk about and would just like to undo with good deeds until the heat death of the universe, and even then we know it will not be enough. But anyway, it is also a valid route into solving climate change, and California and the rest of America should very much look into seeking the wisdom of Native Americans to solve climate change. The majority of furries, 72%, identify as male. I think this gap has been shrinking rapidly. It'll be 50-50 by 2030. Although 1/4 of furries identify as female. It's weird that this is what you're ending your article with. Transgender, gender fluid, and non-binary furries are also present at rates considerably higher than observed in the general population. Tease your readers to the end. I can read your mind, Daily Mail. I know what you're up to. Furries represent fans of media featuring anthropomorphic animals and may include artists, writers, gamers, and role players. They may have a quote-unquote persona, defined as quote-unquote anthropomorphic animal representations of the self. The most popular species was found to be a hybrid of two types of animals, followed closely by wolves. Incorrect. It's wolves, then foxes. Wolves is somewhere in the top 5, but it's not wolves. This article is a complete pile of garbage. I, on the other hand, am the most qualified candidate for Maple Grove City Council, and I stand by that statement and that assessment, which is in my bio. I don't know if I made a post saying that, but that is in my bio, okay? This article has some inaccuracies, but the feeling it gives off is accurate, which is, in conservative media, I'm not used to reading accurate emotion. But I gotta knock that because the way they present it, it's like the more you read it, the more the average reader is meant to get angry and upset. Oh, this guy is part of something that involves gay people, transgender. It's furry. How do Daily Mail readers not know what a furry is? They live in Britain. There is no way you don't see a furry like once a week over there. It is way more prominent than in Minneapolis. But this is Minnesota. We're willing to do quirky shit over here, okay? This is the state of hot dish and pop. So, of course, a furry like myself, who lives with his mother, by the way. Like, why even hide that to you people? Yes, I live with my mother. Yes. I have struggled financially. Yes, I'm on a better path. Yes, I actually love my job, but I feel it is my duty to help others and make Maple Grove a better place and go right past stale Steffi and get shit done so that we can have better transit. We can have a city that is a model for the rights of transgender, LGBTQ plus people, whatever sexuality, whatever sex, whatever gender, as long as there is mutual consent and trust, and it is not incest, I am okay with it. Alright? I am okay with that. That it is all based and valid under those parameters to me. I made the news. I am extremely happy. I know I don't look like it, but I am extremely happy that I made the news. And it is great that the Daily Mail was the first to break it, because some of the loudest people now know who I am. They know about my campaign. And thank you so very much, Joe Hutchinson. I'm going to read some of your other articles when I'm done recording here, just to see how big of a quack you are. You write for the Daily Mail, so you are a quack by default. But I want to look at some of the comments, too. And the biggest one of the most likes on the Daily Mail, is Minnesota. Something sinister has happened to that place. So many things of not the previously thought social norm now are commonplace. Yeah, that happens sometimes. In fact, it happens a lot when the thing is not harmful or fatal. Get over yourself. It has happened before. It will happen again. Cope, or I will mock your rage. That decision is truly binary. Public transit usually requires furry passengers to be in characters. Service animals are allowed if they're on a leash. That's actually the best comment, and I have a Telegram sticker with that very thing, just knowing the irony. I have a Telegram sticker pack for the rules of public transit, and when people want to vent about others acting inappropriately on public transit, I just need to compile that together and share that. I'll announce and share that at some point. Okay? I'm not one to love making promises. I can only really say this is where I want things to go, and I will deal with what I have to work with. And it'll be a lot easier for me if I win, Clark Macbeth, and Samba fall. If there's any video that says Christy Barnett, sorry. If there's any, of all the videos that previously said Christy Barnett, that Chiron is wrong. The current one is accurate. Me and Samba fall. Here's are the candidate filings. Let me show you right here, right now. I also lived in the Show Me State. Like, I sound like I'm lying when I said I lived in a bunch of places of America. Like, I never lived on the West Coast, not Oregon, not Washington, not California. But I lived in 3 American time zones because my dad was a white-collar chemical engineer. I am technically an oil baby, but I'm very much not a fan of the continuation of the existence of the fossil fuel industry. Why, according to your logic, we should have bailed out Big Candle because of the impact, the hurt fifis that they received because the light bulb is used primarily for lighting now. And fuck off with that. But, yeah, I'm going to show you the candidate filings here. I'm going to change my work environment, and after this, I will explain to you what this browser is. I love that I am getting renewed attention amongst the furry community. Like, there were several points where you could consider me completely canceled. Like, what happened with the KC Fur debacle? I don't live there anymore, and I did a lot of stuff that I regret. There's somebody in Georgia who I'm not going to name drop. I said something very bigoted in the chat, so I deserve to get banned from the chat and blocked by that person, okay? So I'm going to throw cold water on any of that before it can even come back up. I would like to mend ties and be friends with that Georgia person again, but it is entirely possible that will never happen, and I will have to live with that. So there's the cold water on those dramas before it even begins. Therefore, they will not. Here is the candidate filing page. I've been pointing here a lot. I really should remember. This is where I need to point, even though my TV is actually over here. that is also my second monitor. Or I could just tell you to get over yourself and just let me present the information you need to see. So, Samba Fall is running. Kirsten Robbins is not running for re-elections. Not running for re-election. I do not know if this is her husband. It probably is because the last name doesn't end with son or sen, and mine doesn't either, which makes people easier to track in Minnesota. I have made the dad joke, like 100 times, at least at when I worked at Walgreens. Well, that narrows it down when the last name was Johnson, Anderson, or Anderson. But look, John. Oh, please don't be related to the people who make the good sandwiches in Warren. If you ever go to Warren, Pennsylvania, which is mostly a boring place, if McCullough's is still in existence, get a sandwich from there. It's better than anything you'll find in the rest of the Mid-Atlantic, and that does include New York. There's my name. I want my website on there. Dang it. And it looks like some of these were retroactively put up. So if I win and Samba wins, it will be impossible for male Stale, Mark Stephenson, or Stale Steffi. Stale's not part of his name, but that's what I like to call him. Stale Steffi can't block stuff anymore. He has to work with the DFL. That means that him and one other council candidate will have 2 people on the council, and that there will be 3 who are on the more DFL side of things. So there would be 2 on the Greater Coalition that wants Maple Grove to look more like Greater Minnesota, and 3 in the Metro Coalition that would make more Minnesota be more like the Metro, because Maple Grove is in the Metro. It should therefore have Metro Transit. Yeah, I know there was one cost overrun, but that's the great thing about Minnesota. I can count those on one hand in the entire history of the whole state in my lifetime. So where was I? Oh, yeah. Samba Fall would roll past Stale Steffi because I don't know the name of the other one. Janigo. That would mean me, Samba Fall, and Christy Janigo would be in charge. And that's the most comfortable position I'm being in as a completely new candidate running his first campaign ever. Like, I don't want to be in a room full of inexperienced freaks who have no idea what they're doing and remind them how to use Excel and not to eat the glue 10 times a day. And I know it's controversial, but experience matters in politics. Politicians should have experience and use that on behalf of their voters. I'm not a fan of gerrymandering. I'm not a fan of the top 2 system that I have to deal with now and awkwardly say, yeah, Samba Fall is going to be my de facto running mate. I'm going to try and make that clear at the forum. But what can you do? Well, if I win, if Samba Fall wins, we could have ranked choice voting. It would be a top 2 of what the majority of Maple Grove residents want, and I have a feeling that it is not what Stale Steffi wants anymore. I mean, Maple Grove does have a history of being moderately conservative like the rest of the Minnesota suburbs, but that's just not true anymore. Okay? That moved north to Elk River and Rogers. They're moderately conservative. And St. Cloud has patches of completely insane, which is even further north than that. That's the state of politics in Minnesota now. Like, there's a lot of crosstalk. There are still Republicans in suburbs and Democrats in rural areas. And you know what? Variety is the spice of life. It's Minnesota. I mean, as long as we're all excellent to one another, we can have all the freedom we want. And because of all the missteps in states like Florida and Georgia and the whole South, Texas, Oklahoma, apparently we can have all the money we want too if we play the labor cards, right? And get people from the rest of the country to start new businesses here. Life didn't just give us lemonades. It gave us heaping sacks of golden eggs. And just like Norway, we need to use those responsibly. And we need to do whatever we can to build the best Maple Grove that can possibly exist for the most amount of people. I'm Clark Macbeth, and I approve this message.